Welcome to video 2 in our series on the Galatian Error, the subtle but dangerous twisting of the gospel that tries to make you work for what's already freely yours by faith. In this session, Dave unpacks how this error diminishes justification, turning it into just a ticket to heaven, while making the Christian life all about works and performance. There's much more to come as Dave digs deeper into how this false gospel cuts believers off from the blessing of the Spirit and true freedom in Christ. The Galatian Error explained.
Galatian error, or an accursed gospel, which is not another gospel, but some trouble you by perverting the gospel of Christ, comes in and tries to make you work for what's already yours by faith. That's what justification is. It secures everything in the Christian life. So in a way, we never graduate from justification. When Paul's talking about justification, he's not just talking about the beginning of the Christian life. He's talking about the entirety of it. And there's this erroneous idea that justification is one thing and sanctification is another. And that sanctification is a step or a process after justification. You're justified, you're going to heaven, and now you need to get on with the Christian life, which is a matter of work. That's what 99% of Christians believe, and they're all wrong. And anyone who teaches it is teaching an accursed gospel. They don't know that because they're not educated, and they grew up in Galatianized Christianity. But when the truth is clearly presented, and they reject it, and double down, and rail against it, now they're accountable. Like Jesus said, they would have no sin if I had not spoken to them, but now they have no cloak for their sin. And what happens when they start railing against the truth is their true ugly nature starts coming out. The flesh comes out. We all have the flesh. And if we sow to it, we'll reap from the flesh corruption. Okay? And we'll bite and devour one another, and we'll be consumed of one another. That comes, according to Galatians, from trying to be perfected in the flesh according to law keeping and cutting yourself off from the blessing of the Spirit, trying to put God in your debt through your service in order to get something that He's already given you freely as a gift. That's what it means to frustrate the grace of God. That's what it means to be falling short of the grace of God and to be cut off from Christ in that respect.
Grace as the basis of reward.
And what Galatian Error does is it comes along and says, oh no, justification, that's just for going to heaven. If you want to please God, it's by works. And if you don't do the works, you'll be punished. You won't be blessed. See, that's how they got the Galatians' eyes off the crucified Christ and onto their flesh. And they said, oh, well, yeah, you're saved. Or actually, some of you might not be saved because it looks like you're not circumcised. So maybe you're not really... So there was a mixed message. But for the ones that are saved, you need to be circumcised. You need to... Because Jesus was circumcised. Don't you want to be the children of Abraham? Jesus was the seed of Abraham. Don't you want the blessing? You know, we're Abraham's seed, and that's why we're blessed. We're circumcised, and we keep the feasts, and we obey the law, and we go to the temple. Okay? Now, at that time, it was all Jewish ordinances. But... if you take up one point of the law, circumcision, you've taken them up all of it, right? Today it could be the tithe. You know, someone comes along and says, if you want God to supply your needs, are you tithing? Are you going to the local church, or are you forsaking the assembly? Do you have a good pastor? Where's your accountability? What's to keep you from just running hog wild? Don't you know that if you don't go to church and you don't get disciplined, God's going to discipline you, and He might kill you if you sin? See, they threaten you with carrots and sticks. That's law. Carrots gives you reward if you can do it. It promises you reward if you can do it, and punishments if you can't. And so you live in the hope of reward or the fear of punishment, and that's supposed to be a motivator. But that's not what motivates us under grace. Grace, we're motivated by our attraction to a person. And what I told this person, Carrie, she said, you know, are you saying that it doesn't even matter if I don't go to parties anymore? Now, I balanced it. At first, I told her, look, I'm saying if you can abstain from these things, but if you do it because you think it earned you a treat from God or some kind of reward, It has no value. And I did a message one time said, we are friends of God, not dogs. Because we're not here working for a treat. You know, my dog, the only reason they go in the kennel is not because they care that it's our turn to eat and they want us to have a nice meal. It's because they know they get a treat. They're working for a treat. That's not my friend. I mean, it's cute. It's, you know, dog's your best friend, but really he's motivated by self-interest. His appetite is his belly. His God is his appetite. But I said justification is what secures the blessing. Faith in the blood is how we enjoy the Spirit. There's no holiness apart from the Spirit. There's no fruit of the Spirit apart from the Spirit. There's no Christian life apart from the Spirit. There's no genuine joy in the Lord apart from the Spirit. And the Spirit is the blessing of the gospel.
Galatian Error, works versus grace.
Okay, so the second form is much more subtle, but it was engineered by Jesuits and wolves, okay? That system of doctrine is a doctrine of demons that pretends to be grace. The third form of Galatian error is this idea that there's another kind of justification. There's a justification that gets you to heaven, but there's another kind of justification where you earn your way into God's presence and you earn blessings and rewards. This is more blatant and stupid, actually. And yet, this is what we see in the so-called free grace camp. It's still another gospel and it's accursed. You know, what people are doing is saying, well, look, they've got the gospel right. They know how they're going to heaven, so therefore they're my brother, and I should tolerate the differences on these secondary, issues. But I'm telling you, but the GES is motivated. The reason they go to people's walls and teach and tell everybody about the wrath of God that's on believers and argue for it and argue for a doctrine of punishments so that God might kill you, and then once he kills you, there's actually a beating post at the Bema seat. He's going to beat you there and throw you into outer darkness. And the reason they teach that there's a difference between inheriting the kingdom and having your salvation, and most believers who are unfaithful and don't keep the commandments and don't preach the gospel everywhere they go, they're unfaithful, they're not overcomers, will be in outer darkness after the beatings. This is what they officially teach. Okay? That's motivated not by a desire to understand grace. That's motivated by a hatred for the brethren. Anyone who says that you're just looking for a license to sin when you talk about the grace of Christ is someone to be marked and avoided immediately. Freedom in Christ is your ability to approach God now based on justification. And they tell you that you can't. That's an accursed gospel. They strip justification of its benefits. They're accursed. Okay? Period. You don't have to guess, oh, well, he's my brother because he says OSAS is the gospel.
Subtle deceptions in the gospel.
And this is the root of all the false teaching in Christianity, is that it tells you that there's a problem with you and God, even though justification cleared it. And what they do is they get your eyes off justification and say, oh no, that's just at the beginning of your Christian life. We're justified, so now we need to learn to behave so that we can please God. No, the way we please God is to come forward by faith. And we believe that he is and that he's a rewarder of those who seek him. So we're seeking him, expecting him to show up.
Today we've seen how Galatian error steals your rest in justification by faith alone. Next time, we'll explore Paul's amazement at how quickly they turned from grace. Until then, may you find peace in the gospel truth.